Ooh,
Whoa, hang on. News breaking.
breaking news. Oh, how about this? All right, Lisa, breaking news. Bobby, give that to us again. If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions and news, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinatti and Byron Lazine, and we've got a lot of things to cover this week. We've got NAR fallout after the settlement. We've got some comments from the newest leader there, Kevin Sears. We also have a Fed meeting that went way under the radar this week because of all the NAR news. And we've got some cool stuff to talk about what we're doing here on Knowledge Brokers. So I think where we want to lead off first, Byron
Well,
and Lee.
let me
Go ahead.
jump in on the cool stuff. We're
Oh.
gonna go to our reactions from the live stream that we did together. Thank you for so many of you that checked that Knowledge Brokers panel out, and as well as the FOMC and a couple other things. But I don't know. It was about a little bit over a year ago we started this pod because we knew that there was a space for knowledge broker conversations for individuals who are in it. Of course, Lisa, Tom and I did kind of start the pod before bringing you in, and we were thinking about bringing two more people into the pod. And then we said, wait a minute, our best friend Lisa has two faces. So it'd be like having four.
Yeah, it's great.
It'd be like having four voices. But three operators who are in it every single day, just like many of you that are listening. And we have some really cool news to share. And it's thanks to all of you who listen to this podcast every single week. This week, we cracked the top 200 on the Apple business category for Top Show podcasts. It's just unbelievable. And, you know, when you look at this, we're above the ranks of a Grant Cardone, a Brad Lee, Goldman Sachs podcast, Tom Ferry's podcast, CNBC Squawk Box. We're above a whole bunch of these, which is amazing. I've been doing pods for like almost 10 years, and I've never even sniffed this chart. And so obviously it's a credit to the BAM team and to Tom and Lisa, two of my best friends, for doing this. And obviously the majority of the credit would go to all of you listening, because obviously you're enjoying this. So thank you so much. Audio is the barometer of, like, is it an actual true pod, right? And I just want to say, if you guys are enjoying it, please go to Apple or Spotify, no matter where you're consuming it. I mean, BAM has spent a lot of time on YouTube, but to see the success on Apple, if you listen on Apple or you listen on Spotify, we'd love to have a review. So thank you guys. Win for the Knowledge Brokers team. And now, Tom, let's get into it with reactions from the live stream that we did together, and kind of what's happened since, and what the conversations are about the settlement.
Sure. And I would say this is also a win for the knowledge brokers out there that are really paying attention to what's going on, because the whole point of this pod, Byron, I remember I was sitting in my living room and you called me, which you never do. Usually you don't return text messages for weeks. So it was a very nice treat. And it was, hey, we need to help the public that's out there. And I think the reason this works is because the three of us are good at different things. It's not just we're all the same kind of person. I think that goes a long way. So major credit to people for investing in yourselves, because that's the whole point about this podcast. It's to create a better agent. So with that in mind, unless Lisa's got any comments, phase one or phase two is welcome to
both
comment on
faces
this.
have
Okay,
split
good.
between what you've each said, and right face goes with
Good
Byron,
enough.
left face Tom.
So yeah, I looked at a lot of the comments during the live stream. I thought the live stream was really, really helpful. And there was a lot of fear in the marketplace. And I think that fear is real among agents. And in some ways, I think we all should be afraid a little bit about, because there's unknown. Things are changing. The way this has been done is changing. And the biggest thing I was shocked about, Byron and Lisa, and I know, Lisa, you're very bullish on this, is I don't see how anyone's going to pay a buyer agent. I can't fathom this. And that was not just one comment. It was multiple comments that we've seen across all platforms that are talking about this. Lisa, I know you disagree. I disagree with that. There's going to be some people that always go for the cheap option. That's why discount brokers exist.
Yep.
Lisa, tell us your point on this, because I think this is the most important thing to take away from this. And you've been very, very adamant about it since we started talking about it.
Interestingly, I've been adamant about it for years. I've been saying this since the day that I started selling, which is, and First, I want to say that I don't believe that agents need to choose one or the other. I do believe that most agents should have a mix of a well-rounded business, do some listing side, do some buyer side stuff. But that being said, I am so bullish on that this is an opportunity for those that specialize in buyers to finally make what they are worth. They are going to be in control of their income and be able to negotiate directly for what they're worth. In my office for years, and I think in the marketplace, maybe even nationally, because I see it at every event that I go to, there's such a talk and emphasis on listings because you tend to make more money. The commission percentage is usually higher. People perceive it as maybe a little bit less work, though I argue it's different work. And
Mhm.
what I'm pushing for is that in a world where, look, when I represent a buyer, I'm aggressive about helping them find the property that they're looking for, whether it's on MLS or not. I know that when I write an offer for that client, there is a 99.9% chance that that offer gets to the closing table because I've educated them so well about what to expect from every step of the process. The other side of it is that when I work with a buyer and they tell me that they've found the property, no matter the market conditions, no matter how competitive, I can almost always guarantee that if it is the property and my buyers absolutely do not want to lose it, that I can get an offer accepted because of my skill in negotiation, because of my skill in building rapport and relationships with the focus on the other side, and because of my skill with coaching the buyer to write the offer that they need to write in order to win in that situation. And I think that buyers will pay a premium for that. I will say it over and over. Not all buyers, but there are a segment of buyers who will pay for that expertise and that guidance and the assurance of getting the outcome that they want. When the market changes a little bit, which we know it will, buyer agents will pivot back a little bit and their skill will become negotiating the best price and terms in a slightly different way, but the outcome is still the same, the best price and terms that the consumer is looking for. It's a different skill set than listing, but it is just as valuable.
Yeah, I mean, and we mentioned it on the live stream on YouTube earlier this week that there's going to be such an abundance of transactions, to your point, Lisa, that there's going to be plenty of opportunities to work with the buyers that you want in your personal business. We actually, by the way, for those, now that we know how many of you are listening to just the audio version only, we did upload that to audio last night, so it's available. So if you're not on YouTube and you're like, which live stream, you can go and it'll be the episode right before this one as a special. But Lisa, one thing I think is important here for people to wrap their minds around, and the question that they keep asking here is like, well, they're getting so caught up in, okay, well, I'm going to negotiate my fee, but what if the fee is being that I've agreed to is now less than what is being offered? Because listen, comp is going to be offered, and it's almost like there's this like, oh, I might miss out on some comp here. Well, not if you are getting the comp that you deserve up front. You're not going to miss out on anything. And the beautiful world here is the buyer gets to have a say in what your comp is going to be. You have a discussion with them and you're going at it as a team. I'll also say this. Being a buyer agent, being a great buyer agent or a kick-ass buyer agent, as Lisa says, is a skill that you can't turn on and off like a light switch.
Mm-hmm.
It is a skill that you have to build over and over and over again. What do I mean by that? Right now, it's very sexy to just be a listing agent. Everybody just wants listings because inventory is down. And so the difficulty of working with buyers for the last couple of years has been high. But when markets shift and there aren't as many buyers, or there is an abundance of inventory and listing agents are just searching for great buyer agents to bring them a showing. We've worked in those markets in the past. All of a sudden, the value of a buyer agent goes through the roof. And I remember in 2011, 2012, 2013, when I was a very inexperienced agent and I was focused on listings. I was building listings, but it's like there was listings were of abundance. And I remember seeing other agents in the market who were really experienced, and I saw that they had a lot of buyers and they were writing a lot of contracts because, to Lisa's point, like they had a 99 percentile, like we're going to get to a closing table no matter how many properties we have to look at. And people really valued that experience. And they were like the stars of the market, meaning every listing agent wanted to have conversations with them. People in the market that were shopping wanted to have conversations with them because of the amount of homes that they were showing each and every single day, the amount of experience they had. And it was invaluable what they were doing during that time. And, you know, we can talk about how short of inventory we are over the next 2 or 7 years, but I mean, I see what's happening in the West Coast of Florida right now. Inventory can change like that. Markets can shift like that. And so if you don't have experience on both sides, it's hard to turn it on and off.
Well, there's also some stuff here too that I think Lisa brought up, but there's tactical ways to approach this, just like it is with the listing. So, hey, here's what I do differently. Here's what this contract means. Here's your closing cost estimate. Hey, here's the questions I'm going to ask before we write an offer, because I've been on the other side of this. I've been much more of a listing agent in my career than not. And you get these offers, you never hear from the agents. It pops up in your inbox. There's no questions. And if they would have asked some discovery questions, they probably could have saved their client some money. They probably could have gotten them better terms. But because of this, hey, I got to get this offer in right away. And like they don't know how to approach the business transaction in a way where, like we've seen this on some of these reality shows where the buyer agent tells their client, like, hey, don't tell the listing agent how much you like the house. Be aware there's a ring camera at the door. These are things that are very tactical that you got to have conversations up front. And Lisa, to your point, I think it's just as difficult to be a great buyer agent as it is to be a great listing agent. There's a major hustle component, constant communication. There's questions to ask. There's ways to present things in a professional way versus the way we've all received offers that look like, a child wrote them. I mean, there's all these things that go on. So what I'm clear on is you got to pick where you want to excel here. And you got to make a decision to be great at something and not do a little bit of everything. And there's going to be a market for great buyer agents, because if there weren't, and think about the high end market, right? I mean, you need those agents working with you as a listing agent, and the people that, want to be abrasive and don't want to return buyer agent calls. I mean, it's going to end up hurting them when comp's not published and you need people to work on your behalf. So I think this is a really great point that it's something you can lean into, and it takes different personalities to be good at different things. So there's a lot to really factor in here.
Yeah, it's interesting. A friend reached out to Byron and I the other day. Excuse me. She works in a second home market. And I said, I think each market is going to have its own subtleties, but in a second home market where a buyer may not be living in the community or even within driving proximity, having a skilled buyer agent to seek out the opportunities, to conduct showings, who knows exactly what that buyer is looking for, that's going to be irreplaceable by listing agents who are just representing a smattering of listings here and there. And that buyer is not going to want to have relationships with 5, 6, 7, 10 different listing agents in a market to try to keep on top of all of the inventory that's coming on the market or the inventory that's being sold before it hits market. I'm just so clear that what we need to be doing as an industry is really defining out what truly is the value prop of a buyer agent, because we've lost it. And I think it's clear to me that we've got to approach the buy side like the sell side. We walk into a listing appointment and we present to that seller knowing that, look, every agent's going to tell you that they're going to take professional photos. They're going to have a floor plan. They're going to have a sign, an open house posted in MLS. Well, every buyer agent's going to set you up on an IDX feed. They're going to open the door. They're going to write the offer, right? But what is it that buyer agents are going to do to sit in that interview and slay it? Is it going to be like the stuff that we're starting to put together? Is it that we can somehow figure out a relationship with a great inspector who can do pre-offer inspections? Is it a cleaning company, a moving truck that can help with some of that? Is it direct mail marketing to a targeted list of high likelihood to sell people to find off-market opportunities? Is it a database of the top listing agents in the market that you have a great relationship with? I think it's time to strategize and be as tactical as listing agents are.
Well, Lisa, thank you for saying that. That a friend that I have other friends besides you two called us and asked this question there. Now everybody listening to the pod knows I have at least one more friend out there. I mentioned in the BAMX after party after the live stream, something that we've implemented immediately with my team. And when we get a new lead now, we go right into confirming the appointment, because that's what they want. They want the appointment on the home tour or the two properties that they want to tour, and then having a follow-up call and confirmation of those tours. And I just moved out of my old house into my new house. What happened the day before the move? Everything was scheduled. It was already in our calendar. But the day before the move, my wife got a phone call, and the moving company said, we want to verify both addresses, make sure we don't have them flipped in our system, make sure we're going to go to the right address first and the second address second. I know you've already done this, but we want to reconfirm everything. We want to reconfirm what furniture is going to be moved, so we make sure we have the right truck and the right amount of people. And then what do? They go through, hey, don't know if you got a chance to get us the deposit or make sure you sign this last form before the actual moving day. This is just moving furniture. Okay. When we're bringing somebody into a private residence of a seller, don't you think you owe the same respect to the process? And so immediately now, when we get a home tour scheduled, go ahead, schedule the tour, get the information. Now, before the tour takes place, there's a follow-up call, reconfirming, do I have all the information correct? Do we have enough homes on tour? I know we only have one. Is there a second home that you're interested in touring? And then walking them through agency disclosure. What is the agency disclosure that client is going to need to be able to take this home tour and owe the buyer right to rep? That buyer right to rep can be signed for a day, can be signed for those 2 home tours. The very unlikely chance that you're going to get it signed past that just based over the phone, but maybe you are, right? And then that is the preemptive opportunity to set up the conversation after the home tours. Hey, I've already just filled out the buyer right to reps, my ability to get you through the home for these homes that we have identified on the tour. If you've got 15 minutes after the tour, I'd like to have a conversation with you further about what that means. If you'd like to extend my services to contract me as your buyer representation into the future for future home tours, do you think that's going to be fair to have a conversation after those home tours, right? This gives you the ability to set up, hey, whether I want to meet you, in the driveway and have a conversation there, or meet you after the home tours. This gives you that ability when you're confirming everything to get the appropriate paperwork signed. You come off more professional when you have mandatory forms signed. You're bringing people into private homes, and you get that out of the way. So we've already started that process, and I certainly wouldn't wait. If you're thinking along the same lines, I certainly wouldn't wait until July to do it. We're going to be collecting data over the next 3 to 4 weeks of is this process perfect? We're going to be setting up these confirmations through the calendar, through text message, to make sure that there's reminders for this paperwork, and we'll see what works, see what doesn't, see if it impacts show rate. But I'd encourage you to do the same so you can get the data now. Listen, nobody's bottom line is going to be impacted here during the spring market by testing things and making sure they have the right systems in place. It's the perfect time to do it. July would not be ideal when the mandates come down.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sure. So, what you said there, Byron, I mean, that's, you talk about delivering a different level of service, and, it's you're not a door opener anymore. You're actually delivering some value. You're explaining things. I mean, that's what happens when you go to other professions. You go to a doctor's office, you fill out an intake form, right? I mean, you get confirmation. You're talking about your mover. And where this is going to really change things, it's also going to be a lift for a lot of agents, because the biggest complaint I've got, and I'm sure you guys have gotten this at your teams, I got ghosted. These people never called me back. Well, you know what you're doing there, Byron? You're delivering clear next steps. Here's what happens next. Here's how we can help you moving forward. And now I've got you educated about the process. I look at this as, good agents have been doing this stuff for a while, by the way. I don't think what you said, besides maybe a couple scripting changes around the contracts, is anything different than we've been telling any of our teams over the past 5, 6, 7 years, right? I mean, I think it's like, hey, you meet them, you close for next steps, you explain to them how there's value in working with you, pushing a driveway consultation, something like that. That's no different than what we've all been doing. The change is with the paperwork, and that's a pivot you got to make. And it's obviously a lot different getting someone to sign something versus saying, hey, let's commit to meeting tomorrow at 1:00 to look at some more houses. So the onus is going to be on, are you ready to interview? at all times. Like, I mean, you can't be sitting around in your office and not expecting to have appointments later, because we know Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays are high showing dates. You've got to be ready for this stuff, have these like packages and presentations with you. And I used to drive around with contracts in my car back before electronic signatures in case I needed to write an offer and didn't have time to go back to the office, right? I mean, this is stuff that good agents have been doing for a while. The language is going to change. The explanation around fees has got to be a lot more transparent. Besides that, this is what good agents have been doing for a long time, and there's a lot of people that just resist it.
I also think when you go through this process of doing it the right way, I mean, I mentioned a moving company. Everybody has a dentist who confirms appointments 5 or 6 different times in different ways. At least good dentist offices do that.
Yes,
Um,
you're right. Good offices. That says the point.
I think this is going to eliminate people who are window shopping for fun. Okay. And so maybe some of the big portals and maybe even some of the major teams like ourselves are going to have to think about, conversions on show rates a little bit differently. Okay. When you go through this process, you're going to weed out some of the people that are like, you know what? I didn't realize how much was involved here. I'm probably 9 months out. Cool. No problem. We have a solution for you. And we've got a 15-minute training session that I'm going to send over. It's a video you can watch on your own. I also have a time in my calendar that I can start the process and get a strategy session going with you. But necessarily looking at a home and going on a home tour 9 months out might not be the right moment for that particular buyer. And so you could see show rates on leads. Listen, these online portals, they create over 200 million buyer leads per year. And yet there's 4 million transactions. So what are the 196 other million leads doing? Okay, show rates should go down. The fact that people are getting jammed into homes well ahead of the time that they're ready to do so is a little bit misleading on these numbers. And I say that without implicating that, okay, portals are going to have a hit to their bottom line or anything like that. We were talking before the show about my post where, I think I'm the first one to say, hey, Zillow stock is going back up. Like, things are fine. Zillow is going to be fine here on this. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But to think that you're going to have a similar show rate by going through a more detailed process is probably not the case. I don't, Lisa, you know show rates better than anybody. Maybe you want to comment on that.
Yeah, no, I agree staunchly. What I was going to say too is it's interesting. We were in Dallas, or I was. I don't know if either of you were there.
I'll be there Monday, so
Okay.
hold your horses.
Wow.
Hold your horses, kiddo.
Fancy. You're going to come to dinner with me Sunday night?
That's a hard
If you're
no.
paying,
I
I'll
can
be
answer for
there.
Byron
I'll
already.
buy you dinner, you cheapskate.
Are there more than 2 people at dinner? Because then Byron.
Is it a nice dinner? Is it one of your like
No, it's a nice
rodeo
dinner.
dinners?
It's a nice dinner with good peeps. So I got you.
How many?
I have to wear cowboy boots or something, do I? Because
You might. Just kidding.
come on.
Well, after. So what I was going to say is I think one of the other things that I'm super mindful of, and it does tie into show rates at a certain point, is I think because of the how prolific buyer leads and buyer agents were over the past couple of years, we fell into a very agent-centric model with scripting, with the ability to show homes and that kind of stuff. And I think we're going to find that the industry shifts to a very consumer-centric model. And what I mean by that is I do think that while we might see show rates fall, what I think we're actually going to see happen is that the percentage of those that get into the showing phase of things, the close rate is actually going to be quite a bit higher. I would expect, my gut says we'll probably see the show rate drop by, let's see, I'll be a betting person. I'll say 30%. That will.
Oh, so you think it's going to be significant? Wow.
I do.
Well, I think you could create an offering though for those that do want to get inside of homes way ahead of buying schedule by mixing in weekday open houses.
Yep.
I think that's a significant. Just doing Saturday and Sundays right now might not be enough. I think there's a huge opportunity on those homes that allow it. People live in their homes and all of that, but on the inventory where you can get weekday open houses, there's going to be a significant opportunity to you fill the need for people that there is a consumer need out there for people that or want, maybe not a need, that want to get in those homes, and then just to meet more people without the stickiness of the process up front.
Yep. No, I agree. So I think the show rate is going to go down significantly, but I would expect to see the percentage that actually get to the closing table to maybe double, and not the true conversion out of all of the leads, but just the percentage that you actually get to the showing homes facet of things, because I think it's going to be a much higher intent buyer when they get there. One of the other things that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about, which I'm giving a lot of thought to, is whether these buyer agency contracts are truly going to be exclusive rights to represent. I know on the listing side, we work very tightly in an exclusive right to sell. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see consumers signing non-exclusive buyer agency contracts where we have to get super clear about the terms of what it means to be a home that we're introducing the client to. And that it really is going to force buyer agents to think outside of the box while buyers look at all of the options that are available to them. And I know, Byron, you had to peace out, and I saw you just peace out and then maybe feel guilty for doing an Irish goodbye.
No. I'm going to peace out in a couple minutes. I'm going to leave you guys the rest of the pod, but finish your thoughts and then I'll close out any of my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I just think it's just that we might have to understand that some of those early contracts, like the ones that you talked about sending ahead of the showing, may be a non-exclusive, where we define
It could
out
be.
what the definition is of a home that the agent has introduced the consumer to, or a home that the agent has shown to the consumer. I'm not clear. In my head, I haven't built it out for exactly what that looks like yet, but I'm confident we'll see non-exclusive rights to represent.
Listen, I'm not saying that I have the perfect formula, but I have a pretty
Oh, no, I agree.
I have a pretty close to what the model is going to be formula, and I'm implementing it right away.
Yep.
And those of us that do that are going to get the data over the next 4 weeks, and the data may show us, to Lisa's point, that there's a opportunity going through that confirmation call to use non-exclusive.
Right.
We're setting appointment, call number 2, agency disclosure and buyer representant form, along with confirming all of the details, and then sending that over e-signature, making sure that there's appropriate text and email reminders, not only for the paperwork, but for the appointment in and of itself. Over the next 4 weeks, data's obviously going to come out. I just want to, before I do have to jet, and I'm going to leave you guys with the rest of the pod, we'll look at retention numbers on this pod, see if they dip when I leave or if they go shooting up on the back.
We're going to analyze that data on top of the buyer agency data on next week's pod. So we'll having charts and graphs here. It's going to be fantastic.
I'm sure retention's going to go up. I love that comment in the live stream. Somebody said 2 weeks ago I was first introduced to Byron and completely hated him. So I'm thankful that Lisa mentioned I have another friend out there at least. Somebody who hasn't been very friendly with many in the industry is NAR, and Kevin Sears is the new president. He seems like a very likable guy, actually. So I don't want to say that. But he did a video last night where he talks about just switching gears a little bit on my final thoughts, and then you guys can take it wherever you want when I bounce out here. But in his video, he acknowledged the fact that they didn't go forward with the appeal because NAR didn't have the $5.4 billion to put up on a bond. And so that kind of, to me, we've been talking about the implications of the business here, and that's what we focused on in the live stream. I just want to bring a little bit of the drama with NAR into it just a little bit. That to me is like final nail in the coffin, admitting that, hey, we're out here to protect ourselves, NAR, because they were unwilling to even entertain bankruptcy as an association. They weren't willing to entertain bankruptcy when there's been a lot of businesses that have to entertain bankruptcy because it's the best thing for the business. It's a tool. It's a viable tool that the country has, but they were unwilling to do that. And that's why they left a whole bunch of people out there holding the bag. So wanted to make sure I got that off my chest. I know you guys are going to talk about Powell and FOMC in a little bit, but I do have to go. So I guess I won't be able to add anything there.
See you later, Byron. Okay. It was very, very quick. Um, so I do want to dig into this NAR stuff, Lisa. And I mean, we could sit here and bash NAR. I don't think that's productive. I mean, everyone knows where we're going with that. The challenge here is that they're looking out for themselves. And I was out with some speaking to some members of our team out of the office, and a lot of them are like, they're like, "What do you think is going to happen?" I said, "Our dues are going to go up." Right? I think that's
Right.
pretty clear. And these are folks that have been in the business a variety of amount of time, whether it's been less than 6 months, maybe a little longer, a couple years. And a lot of them are saying, "Hey, I can't wait till we de-affiliate." And I think you're going to hear this more and more as we go through this. I mean, this is another just bad. I mean, it can't, like, you think it can't get any worse for NAR, and it does. And the thing we're gonna have to deal with here is the MLS access, which I was surprised wasn't part of the settlement. And so I mean, I don't know how we de-affiliate. I think that's the problem. But NAR's just getting their butt kicked here. I don't know what else there's to say about this. I mean, this is just like one more bonehead. It's Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong, and they've had it all happen.
Well, I think looking at how it de-affiliates, I think that there's still some stuff that can shake out. The no select case where DOJ has kind of stepped in a little bit, I think is the opportunity for that to happen. There was some news that, stuff has kind of been put on hold a little bit with the DOJ stepping in while the proposed settlement with NAR kind of is fully reviewed and stuff. But I can still see a world where the DOJ steps in and disconnects all of that stuff with NAR and MLSs. It's fascinating. I think it'll also be interesting to see a lot of chatter in the industry about different MLS services and that kind of stuff. I'm not confident that comes to play despite all the chatter about it, but something to keep an eye on maybe. Like I said, it's just too early. That's my take. Too early.
Yeah, I agree. This is gonna play out over some time here. I mean, NAR was so adamant, we're gonna appeal, we're gonna take this all the way, and then, hey, just kidding, guys, we don't have the money to do it. I mean, it's like, what are we talking about here? And so
Right.
it is unfortunate what's happened there. And I mean, I think Kevin Sears. I mean, I kind of feel for the guy. He's kind of like stuck holding the bag here after they've gone through so many people at these top spots. I mean, he seems like a nice enough guy until hopefully there's no story that comes out about him like it did with the other folks. So. You mentioned something, Lisa. I want to come back to this. Byron jumped in and bogarted the pod and then left. So you talked about the forms. So I have it on good authority. PAR is already changing the forms, the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors. So I'm clear you're going to see the forms change to accommodate exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
And I think that's going to be something that if you want to see some leadership on a state level, because every state's different with their laws, you can't do this nationally. That's something. Just be ready for your forms to change is the last piece of advice I got for buyer agents, because this is already happening. And I imagine they're already talking about the stuff that you're discussing here. And in the Northeast, things get a little more complicated than they do in other places. Like I've seen some other buyer agency agreements from around the country. They're a lot clearer. So hopefully there's a chance for that. Anything you see happening from a state or states level, in your case with forms, and I would just argue that everyone needs to know exactly what these things say, and you need to be able to clearly present them in this new era of real estate.
Yeah, I think both the buy side and sell side, I think we'll see the same. I think we're going to see changes to listing contracts as well. Clearly, the pre-closing disclosure requirement, I think, can be built out. I think that there was a little bit of confusion that's not the traditional CD that we all think of as the financing closing disclosure. But I think that there's going to be another form, be it like and all states have different forms, right? Or like a wire fraud form or an affiliated business form. There's going to be a bunch that rolls out both buy side and sell side. So,
So be ready for that. Know your stuff. I think if you don't know what all the contracts say, I mean, you're not going to be positioned well in this new environment. I think that, and I say this all the time. A lot of the stuff we say here from a skill standpoint is always the same. So that's something that you're going to have to know that inside and out, because you got to present it at the beginning. It can't be this show one home, see you later. Let's see if I can win on personality environment that we've seen. So let's talk about Powell. I want to get to this. So Jerome Powell on the 20th, 2 days ago, he gave his opening statement, and he spoke on the strength of the current job market and the fact that inflation although it was making progress towards 2%, is still too high to justify a rate cut in the federal funds rate. And He went on to drive home the importance of reaching the Fed's inflation goal sustainably, irrespective of how timing of future rate cuts could impact the housing market. Um, there was Housing was mentioned twice in the opening statement. The first was activity in the housing sector was subdued over the past year, largely reflecting high mortgage rates. And then again, the Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware of the high inflation that can impose significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We're strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. So, Lisa, I didn't expect any rate cut here. I don't know if you did. I don't think we're going to see one even at the next meeting. Is kind of my guess. I mean, they're going to be playing the long game here. I do look at Q3 and 4 as the targets there.
Yep.
What does the Fed do? I mean, are they going to keep riding this out? I mean, a lot of people are calling for these rate cuts. I don't see them happening based on these comments.
No, I don't either. And I think it's interesting. I think fives, everyone's got to accept fives are over. We're not going to see fives this year. From my perspective, everything is still kind of, he's right at some level, right? I'm trying to hire for a couple of positions within the company. Hiring is tight. The job market is
Very
still
tight, yeah.
very good. And so I look at it from that perspective. Consumers are transacting despite where interest rates are. Consumers are transacting. Are some starting to feel pain? Without a doubt. But I don't know. It's not going to be a popular opinion, but I think they're maybe doing the right thing to guarantee a soft landing. I'd love to see it sooner to make things kind of speed up and move along and help home buyers. But I do think it might lead to inflation going a little crazy again if they were to do it right now. I think you're right. I don't think we're going to see it in June. I think it's Q3 and not early Q3 is my take on it.
Like September is what I'm hearing Lisa Chinatti say. So there was a great question from Rachel Siegel here. So she asked, will you be able to get overall inflation down to target if housing doesn't break through quickly? And does that affect the timing for eventual rate cuts this year? Very good question. I like this question. Here's what Powell said. Well, we will get aggregate inflation down to 2% over time. I would assume that what we'll continue to see is goods pricing coming into an equilibrium where they're going down, perhaps not as quickly as they have been earlier this year,
Right.
where housing services inflation will come back down as current market rents are suggesting will happen, and where non-housing services will move back down. Some combination of those three things, it may be different from the combination we've had before the pandemic, will be achieved and will bring inflation back to 2% substantially. So, this tells me, if you're a knowledge broker out there, you've got to look at these comments, and this is where you talk about being a great buyer's agent. You've got to educate your folks about what's going on here, because there's the most common objections are, we're going to wait for rates to come down.
Yep.
We're going to wait for more inventory. We're just uncertain about what's happening right now. So if you can't articulate this, and it's as simple a script as, hey, Lisa, I'm not sure if you noticed, but we had the Fed meeting. They didn't adjust rates. I know you told me you were holding off in the hopes rates were going to come down. Do you want to discuss what this decision means for your real estate plans over the next 6 to 12 months? That's the way to ask it, like, to be very clear. And then you got to show the data, right? There's enough mortgage rate predictions out there.
Yep.
There's enough inventory predictions. I mean, we're going to see, I think, a seasonal rise in inventory. That's what there's more than there was last year, but it's still not a lot, right? It's not that equilibrium market of 6 months supply. We're up to like 1.3 months supply,
Right.
which is like, it's better than a month, but it's not ideal. So the education here of knowing what's going on in the market and explaining that's what a great buyer agent's going to do. And that's what someone you're talking about can do over and over and over again with every client they meet, maybe 4 or 5 times a day on a Saturday, because that's what it's going to take right now to educate people. Because if they don't and they keep waiting, prices are going up. There's no housing crash coming. That's very clear. So they're missing out on equity. If they're renting a home, it's costing them money. These are the things you need to be talking to people about, and the ones that are motivated are going to listen.
Agree, 100%. Yeah, I don't have much more to add on to that because it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, this was like this would have been all we talked about if we didn't have this NAR settlement unpacking all week. So I mean, I got one last question for you here, and I want to get your feedback on this. So we've had basically a week to digest all this. And, last week, Byron and I,
Actually,
very
exactly a
reactionary.
week.
It was exactly a week.
Yep.
I think you were doing shrooms in Amsterdam this time last week. So hopefully
Space
that was
coffee,
fun.
but sure.
Oh, there you go.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. She is not Lisa Chinatti does not do shrooms in Amsterdam. I want to be very clear about that. So, but you were away for spring break, which I think is an awesome thing to do. And so a week later, first everyone's up in arms, like, we've been failed, all this other stuff. I've got a little different perspective, but I want to hear your perspective first on how to move ahead if you want to stay in the business, because there's going to be some people that drop out. I think that's something we all need to acknowledge here. If you plan to have a sustainable career, what is your move forward a week later? This is going to change. This is version 1.0, 2.0, whatever. What are some things you need to be doing now? Byron talked about it. I want your take on this.
So mine are kind of simple. I have three. I think it's one, surrounding yourself with people who align with what your headspace is about it. I'm kind of clear that for me, it's separating myself from the noise. Last week was so noisy with the complaining and all of that. And complaining is not going to change it. It's not going to be the outcome. But I also do truly believe that this is an opportunity. I think so. Surrounding yourself with the right people, which comes in play no matter what aspect of business we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I think everybody should actually read the document that's at stake, with the understanding that it's a proposal and that things are likely to change. But I do believe that across the board, the media is putting out a take on the document that isn't actually factual. And I think that there's a lot of undereducated, not necessarily uneducated, but undereducated folks in the marketplace on our side of the business who don't have a solid understanding of exactly what it says. And therefore, they're taking a little bit too much liberty in interpreting what it says. And then the third thing would be to really start thinking about, what do you want your outcome to look like? And I think that there is no one right or wrong answer to that. And I think it's going to be different for everyone. And it's super important that you be clear on what you want your outcome to look like so that you can start putting it in place as a plan in your head with how you get there. And yeah, how about you? What are your thoughts? What should everyone be doing?
I look at this as no different than the COVID-19 pandemic. And Cristiano said this on the live stream. There's going to be like
Yep.
three buckets of people, right? And I want to.
Those were my buckets, by the way. He stole that from me. Those are my buckets.
Okay. Should I call you a soggy loaf of bread now after that?
Yes, exactly. I'm a soggy loaf of bread. I'm sorry that my energy is not always what everybody wants. Whatever.
I think one show we should read all the negative comments. That would be hysterical and just see what they are. But so that was a good one. I thought that was one of the funnier ones. So the three buckets of people, and this is, you could have said this, Chris could have said this. This is always the three buckets when something happens in an industry. There's people that are saying, you know what? I see opportunity. I'm going to adapt. I'm going to make these changes. I'm going to test them out. I'm probably going to screw some stuff up, but I'm going to test it, adjust, and come up with a plan that's going to meet the consumer where they are. That's number one. Then there's the people that are going to do just enough. And they're, okay, I'll do the forms, but I'm not going to go out and explain all this the right way. I'm going to keep doing things the way I always have. I'm not going to adjust my business model. I'm not going to have this vendor list and all these things we've talked about. And then there's some people that are just going to say, you know what, this is bullshit. I'm not going to do it. I don't agree with it. And they're going to be totally resistant, right? Now, the pandemic was different because there was a period of time where you had like three choices. You could load your cannon up and be ready to go when it ended, because we knew it was going to end at some point. You could feel like you're going through the motions, or you could just do nothing. And the people that thrived, right, and we talked a lot during this, were the ones that said, you know what, I still have a job to do. I just may not be able to do it the same way. So I'm going to load up and be ready to take advantage. And there's so many agents that did that, a lot more that didn't. But the people that did, they won. They took market share. And a lot of, people in real estate, influencers, personalities, tacticianers, whatever you want to call them, there's going to be a big transfer of market share. And if you're not, and you mentioned the environment, Lisa, if you're not in the right environment that's promoting, hey, we're going to come out better than we were before. Because remember, this change to buyer agency happened in the 90s, right? So this wasn't something like the industry was like this before. Commercial real estate's been like this forever. If you're not in the right environment where you're getting shown, hey, here's a new skill set, we're going to get you educated, we're going to get you the best information, we're going to have an open dialogue. And that could be with your coach. It could be with your broker. It could be on a team. It doesn't matter what the environment is. It's being in the right environment
Yep.
of people that are going to take this head on. Then you might need to rethink that, because there will be people that are cleansed from the industry. The comments I've gotten from people outside the industry, one is, high up in the financial world, C-level exec said, hey, this is a great opportunity for people that don't know how to scale and don't know how to do business and don't run it like a business, to get them out. And I think that's something I know you and I are really passionate about, doing right by the consumer. And I think there are some components to that. The other side is, and this was someone in the law industry said, hey, maybe you need to get rid of these part-time and weekend realtors. And I can't imagine, like, this is the thing that drives me nuts. You're a part-time agent, right? And I'm not saying part-time transitioning. I'm saying I'm only doing this part-time. I want to be very clear, because everyone's got to, I lived in my parents' basement when I transitioned. You were just had your kids. Steve was working. Like, there's a lot of different ways to transition in. That's not the point here. The people that say I'm only doing this part-time. Well, what's going to happen is, when you sign a contract with someone, the expectations change very quickly. You've made a commitment to provide a service for a fee. And when that happens, the expectations are a lot different than, oh, hey, I'm at my other job right now. I can't call you back. I'm not available right now. The consumer doesn't care when they've entrusted you with a big financial decision. And that's something you and I have said way before all this happened. That doesn't change.
Right.
And now there's even a greater magnitude of seriousness to this, because when you sign a contract, things change, right? And I cannot stress this enough. You've got an obligation now for everyone watching. So you got to make a decision if you really want to lean into your business or not. And like Lisa said, there's a lot of ways to go here. Don't try to be good at all of them. Pick a couple things that you're going to be really strong at and lean in hard. And that's going to be the way to win when July comes, or even sooner, because there's people running around right now that, I don't know what they're doing. They're on Zoom calls all the time. They're talking about stuff. You still got to work on your business and work in your business, especially in the spring.
Agreed.
So we're going to wrap it there.
Totally.
Thanks again. I got to say, I was shocked to get that text from Byron last night about the listenership here. I don't know if that's a word, but that's what it is. That's what we're going to use. So thank you to everyone for tuning in. Stuff you want us to cover, let us know in the comments. Would appreciate a review on the podcast, because the more we do this, the better.
We're not done. We're not done. Compass just settles their commission lawsuit.
Whoa! Hang on. News breaking.
Breaking news. Oh, how about this? All right, Lisa, breaking news. Bobby, give that to us again. Well, give us the breaking news.
$57.5 million. They just settled for. They joined NAR, Keller Williams, Anywhere, and Remax in settling for $57.5 million. Here it is.
Wow.
Let's see.
So you know what's interesting about this? Byron was talking about this with that formula that NAR came up with, and if I recall correctly, based on the formula, they would have been on the hook for triple figure millions of dollars, based rather than 57.5. I think this is a good move for Compass. I don't think you want to be in the crosshairs of this anymore. Yeah. You get those protections. That's a smart business move.
Yep. Hang on. Let's see. I'm reading it now.
I was wondering why Bobby was coming in there.
Yep. Let's see. So it's in addition to NAR's 418.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's interesting, right? Because so this goes to point out that, again, buried in the NAR settlement was that the settlement only covered NAR members who had under $2 billion of sales volume in the year 2022. So by industry standards, I think it was saying we left out 94 brokerages. It's been interesting to watch, but Compass was one of the big ones. Interestingly, in the settlement, NAR negotiated the terms that all of these 94 brokerages could opt for to settle. The number looked like, as it shook out for a brokerage that did $2 billion of volume in 2022, the payment to settle was about $5 million. And like I said, quite notable that Compass wasn't covered by that settlement. And I think each of us in our local markets also have some, small, large-ish indies, not huge players that weren't covered. So it's been interesting to kind of watch that shake out. it's interesting because again, same thing. We all knew Compass would settle, right? It was just a function of when, but interesting to see the number, $57.5 million to settle the antitrust claims.
Well, here was the terms of the NAR settlement, and I think this is really important. So under the terms of the NAR settlement, a firm that wished to utilize the negotiated release must deposit into an escrow account an amount equal to 0.0025 multiplied by its average annual total transaction volume over the most recent 4 calendar years. Based on that formula, Compass would have been on the hook for $570 million. So literally almost 10x of what they settled for. So, you know, in that case, I think this is a smart move because, first of all, what we've known is that every one of these settlements, they've come out and said, we've got as much money as we could have from these people. So I think and, you know, I mean, you can talk all about these big companies. You know, Compass has been spending a lot of money. They've been burning a lot of cash. So this was probably what was available to settle, just like NAR said, we're not going to appeal it. So a smart move. I think the sooner you settle this, the more you can move ahead. And that's how agents should be treating this. Not surprised here. I mean, I think EXP's next. They don't have nearly the same sales volume. There's some other large. Redfin wasn't mentioned. That's another one, Lisa. So we'll see what those companies end up doing.
Yeah, Redfin is interesting because that's a totally different model. So fascinating, kind of looking at Compass stock. Took a small hit, but doesn't seem to be huge based on like compared to Zillow's hit. So
Zillow's back up too. So
not totally, but it's trending back in the right direction. So yeah, it's also fascinating, isn't it?
It's all very fascinating.
Yeah. Well, that was a good way to certainly end the pod.
I guess congratulations. I don't really know what to say. I mean, it's still a lot of money to pay out, but the sooner you can move ahead, in my view, the better. That's how we want to look at this.
Yeah, and it brings total settlement to just over $700 million, if my math is correct. So pretty sizable win for Catch.
Yeah, it's right around $700 million. Yeah, they were at 62.5, adding that other 57 on. You're right there, and that's you know, this is going to happen with these. I would see Redfin, and I mean, you still have Berkshire Hathaway out there too, Home Services, and I know they're going after a large amount of money from them. I think they think Warren Buffett's got the money. I don't know if he really feels that way. That's going to be probably the most interesting one to watch because they're the last people standing here. Another failure from NAR to protect everybody. Just, hey, let's, we don't want to go bankrupt, so you guys are screwed, and that's kind of what they did.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Catch you guys next week. The news keeps coming. Thanks for listening to Knowledge Brokers.
We know that in 2024, your business operations will be more important than ever. Once I figured this out, my business was able to scale and take off. See, generating leads is one thing, but getting that deal across the finish line while keeping everyone happy is another story. Enter Mosaic, everything you need once a lead becomes a client. Mosaic picks up where CRMs leave off to streamline the client experience and maximize your productivity. It's the operating platform that gives agents and teams everything they need to stay organized and proactive throughout the entire transaction process and beyond. Transaction management, forms, AI-powered collaborative search, client retention capabilities, and advanced analytics for your business. In other words, you can use Mosaic to create a powerful flywheel for your business. It will help you close every deal, boost your profitability, and generate more repeat and referral business. If you need a better way to run your business, check out the link below and learn how Mosaic can help you today. Since April, we have uploaded new and sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business into the BAMX platform. Not articles behind a paywall that only pontificate to you what you should think and do, but education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMX and our private Facebook community. Content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. It's why over 1,500 of you and climbing have joined us in BAMX. It's also why tomorrow's price is guaranteed to be higher than today's. That's called inflation. Do not wait any longer. Use code Byron and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Code Byron for 10% off. See you in BAMX.